14 hours 18 all across Guyana. It has been an eventful day, and here to cover everything elections and everything COVID, senior journalist of Kaiser News, Mr. Leonard Gildarie, alongside his co-host Dr. Yog Mahadeo. This is Elections Watch and COVID-19 Watch. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes, good afternoon to our good people in our studio here, Raj and Kevin, and all the beautiful people here of Kaicho Radio, Kaicho News. A good day to you folks. This is Leonard Gildarie, and I'm here being joined by Dr. Yog Mahadeo, as always, on elections and COVID-19 watch. And there's many things to tell you today. A short while ago, the Court of Appeal in Kingston would have ruled 3-0 in throwing out that appeal that was before them, Messenger Jones versus the Guyana Elections Commission, and it was all with drama today within the Elections Commission. Sorry, the Court of Appeal there. And so, what do we tell you? At the end of it, it came down to 1 day being granted, 1 day stay being granted after much deliberations back and forth, heated discussions at the time, for a very short while. From one side, the court says that it is not going to give any. After there was two judges that went says, "I'll be not giving you any more time." This is after Kim Kite, the attorney for the GCOM chair, Claudette Singh, says that she is impatient and she doesn't want to continue with this. When is elections going to end? 2025? So after that, after much deliberations back and forth, the court has granted 1 day stay, and after that, tomorrow is a holiday, so we're not sure what's going to happen. But joining me right now, because we need to analyze what is happening here, is Dr. Yog Mahadeo. But before we do that, there is a statement coming out now, initial statement coming out from the coalition, and they're making it very, very clear that they're not going to abide by any recount figures. Rather, they want valid votes to be included in whatever is going to come out. So they're digging in the heels into the sand. Very clear warning being sounded by the coalition now as to how things is going to go forward if tomorrow GCOM decides that it's going to call a meeting of the commissioners. So let me just read that before I hand it over to Dr. Yog Mahadeo, who's been studying the proceedings, listening very carefully since it started at 11 today. So before that, let me say a good day to all our beautiful people across this land and wherever you're joining us from. Good day to you. So the initial response reaction by Mr. Joseph Harmon, campaign manager of the APNU FC, this is what was issued by Imran Khan. While I do not expect much out of the Court of Appeal as constituted, I'm still disappointed that the court did not use this opportunity at this juncture in the history of Guyana to make a judgment of which was sound in law. The Guyanese people certainly examined in a more meticulous way the manner in which their justice system functions. The APNU AFC coalition is committed to the rule of law and respect for decisions of our court. Reiterate that when the matter goes to GCOM, that only valid, I repeat that, we iterate that when the matter goes to GCOM, that the only valid votes will be counted in the final declarations made by the chairman of GCOM. Fraudulent votes cannot be a basis for final declarations to be made. This is our firm position. Joseph Harmon, campaign manager of the coalition. Let's get right down to it. But while he is saying that, it is very, very clear what the court 3-0 would have said today. They hit out that appeal and said we don't want it here, that it doesn't have any basis. Over to you, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Good day, my brother. I know you're very busy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Leonard, and good day to everybody out there all across Guyana and, of course, wherever they're joining us from. It's been a very packed day, I would say. Mr. Harmon's wording. Leonard, I just want to make sure that you and I restate to the Guyanese people what we have said from day one. None of us, Kaito Radio, Kaito News, I believe we can talk on their behalf as well, Leonard, even though this is more or less an independent, well, it is a Kaito radio program. But ladies and gentlemen, none of us, nobody, not a single person here wants fraudulent results or fraudulent votes to be counted. Nobody wants fraudulent. Nobody wants a spoiled ballot. Nobody wants an improper ballot to be counted. All of those things must be put aside, and it has been identified and put aside by the recount. APNO AFC made allegations that certain numbers of votes were improper. The Court of Appeal said today an elections court has to listen to that and so determine. So, Leonard, that is very clear. Mr. Harman is not saying anything new. Mr. Harman, basically, I believe Mr. Khan and Mr. Harman did not listen to what David Granger said. Was it this morning David Granger made that statement when he said he has no conditionalities applied to a GCOM decision? He hasn't said whether it's day or night or any, those were his words, right? So David Granger, as of this morning, would have said to the reporters that I have no conditionality attached. Whatever it is that GCOM declares, I will abide, I will comply. Whatever the court declares, I will comply. So the three things, therefore, that are in play at this moment, Leonard, is one, the court has unanimously dismissed the appeal. All three judges, unanimous decision. They have dismissed that appeal of Jones versus GCOM et al. Now, secondly, David Granger has reiterated today, and Guyanese would remember that 2 weeks ago, David Granger said he had attached some conditionality 2 weeks ago, right? You remember when he said, I will abide by the decision of GCOM, but so. So he changed that. Today he said there is no conditionality. I will abide by the decision, whatever is the decision of GCOM. And thirdly, of course, is this statement from Harman. Now, I would not read too much at this stage. That is their knee-jerk reaction. Of course, sometimes I'm mindful of a little baby in a house that wants his own way, and if you don't get your own way, you're going to cry. But that being said, Leonard, it was interesting to note the last moments in the court.
Yes, that struck me.
Yes.
Big drama there.
Correct. Now, I was almost annoyed in one way when one of the attorneys said, how are y'all who, Johnny come lately, people who decide to attach yourself to this court, want to be settled, want to have costs? Well, what about the whole of Guyana? What about the cost being that $8 billion that has been pending at GCOM that has been misused? What about all the monies of the Secretariat and of Keith Lowenfield for all this time wasted, and they're collecting a salary, Leonard? So it is annoying to see people barefacedly talk like as it, but look, they're talking about the approach to the court and the cost in front of the court, but cost has to be taken into perspective. The more important one, though, is the stay. And I think all of the attorneys, including one of the judge, would have said, stay what? There is no order. There is nothing to say, well, we hereby give an order to GCOM to do so. The appeal that you brought to us is dismissed. They cannot roll that back. So what are you staying? I believe that in a matter of good sense or humanity, whatever it is, the two judges decided, okay, we're going to give them 24 hours. For what, nobody knows. I think Mr. Mendez and Anel Nandlal did ask for stay of what and for what, and they didn't answer. Nobody can answer. There is no answer to that question. So there is a stay for 24 hours. I think in everybody's mind, they would be questioning whether when is the 24 hours going to expire, Leonard, because tomorrow is a public holiday. Saturday is a public holiday. Sunday is a holiday because Sundays are usually holidays. So is it that the 24 hours is really 72 hours or more? But no, I have sought one of our counsel's advice, and in the court's eyes, 24 hours start as of the moment it was given and ends tomorrow, notwithstanding tomorrow being a holiday.
Yes, thank you very much there, Yog. So let's go back, because if you were paying attention, I thought when I was looking at the entire thing, you could have a sense of where they were going to go, and it was 3-0 at the end. But everything came down to those end moments in which Royzell Ford made some statements, and he's the attorney there that would have been making the statement asking for a stay, and then everybody some time to really consider the implications or the impact of this. And then everybody chimed in, starting with Anand Nandlal, they had Sanjeev Dattadin, and everybody else. Kim Kite made some very, very strong statements there. She was representing GCOM chair, Claudette Singh, and she's saying, we would have done it the last time, and I mean, why are we continuing this at this moment? This is not going to end. Maybe till up to 2025. There's clearly an impatient attitude to what is going on. I think we've reached the end of the line. That's what she's saying. Clearly, she's been instructed by her clients. Her client would have been the GCOM chair. So it gives you an idea very clearly that look, we're not going to continue with this now. The Caribbean Court of Justice was supposed to be next week, heading into a 2 months vacation, and they would have clearly said that they would be willing to accommodate any requests. Is there enough time to file a request? The court is given 24 hours. I'm not sure whether they would be able to do something, but it was a drama in those last moments. At one point in time, the court, the three judges or majority decision that says, no, we're not giving you any more time. Let's move on with this. Then Maxwell Edwards jumped in. He was there with the Attorney General Basil Williams and says, look, I want to have my say. And then there was a change of heart. Two judges says, look, we're going to give you 24 hours. But Yog, I want to ask you a little about that because that was drama at the end, lots of drama.
Yes, Leonard, indeed. Just to note, the party, the attorneys for Jones, did not say that they are going to file an appeal. They said they needed time to consider their options. Unless I misheard something, I clearly remember that they said they needed time to consider their options. So that might mean any number of things. It may mean that, yes, they're going to go for an appeal. It may also mean that, they would be advising their client that, look, this case may not be worth it going for an appeal. What I believe is, and tonight we'll have to really discuss this at length in room 592 with Sanjeev Dattadin and Tony Estefan. What I believe is one of the questions here that I have in my mind, Leonard, given that the Court of Appeal gave a 24-hour stay, if they are to come back tomorrow and say, okay, we have considered our options and the option we have decided we are going to file an appeal. Now that the Court of Appeal has given a stay already, will the court be inclined to say, okay, further stay is granted because you have indicated what you're going to do? I don't know the answer for that, but we'll certainly have that question for our attorneys tonight.
Well, obviously, I think this point was brought out time and again. Can a court refuse knowing that the matter was before them? I'm not sure they could look into the merits of the case. Just listening to what the Court of Appeal says, it's going to be interesting to see how the Caribbean Court of Justice treats this matter now going forward, Yog. They have only 24 hours to do that before I think the GCOM systems are activated, whatever measures it is. But clearly, you could see from the body language of Kim Kite, and she would not have been acting without any kind of directions from the GCOM chair.
Well, there was no repeat. Yeah, there was no repeat of what she did the last time, right?
Yes. Well, the last time, if you would have missed it, the last time she bent over, she says it's, we've always, if there is an indication, I can't remember her exact words, but she basically allowed the appeal to go forward, and a lot of people were with raised eyebrows, including lawyers who were present there, stating, but wait a minute, she didn't even confer with her client, who would have been the GCOM chair. So for her to, about this time, I think all eyes were on her and see how she would have reacted, because it was not surprising that there was a request by lawyers to have this matter stayed so there would be enough time to prepare an appeal. Now the question, the issue did not come up, or it was not disclosed whether this time would be used to file the appeal. But if we could look at what would have transpired the last time, what would have been the effect of it, there was an appeal that's filed, so there's some conclusions that could be drawn there. But let's see. It is a little too early in the game. What is very clear is that three judges, led by Don Gregory, Rishi Prasad, Priya Sunarayan Bihari, would have given a 3-0 decision to let us not hear this thing. Let's strike it out. But what was also interesting, Yog, I sat and I listened to Ms. Bihari, Justice Bihari, in her decisions. It's very, very clear. You know, there's one thing that I like. I like when judges come out and, like the Roxanne George and others, very, very clearly put forward arguments, bring up the points, and then she would counter says why I did not go in a particular direction. I thought that she was very, very clear, very concise, and very straight up in her criticisms as to what would have been. Rishi would have also made it very clear about his unhappiness with what the former Court of Appeal during the decisions, what would have come out today. Two judges would have ruled. He made it very clear about his unhappiness with that. Over to you, Yog.
Yes, sorry, Leonard. Indeed, I found that not just in this case, Justice Bihari, Justice Barnes, and Justice Prasad, they present or they give you a background to how they make their decision. That's how the courts do their stuff. They do immense research because the basis upon which they make a decision, of course, is appealable. So they have to make sound decisions based on precedents and other matters, sound consideration of the law. What I found, there were some moments in today's decision that, for me stands out. Like, for example, Mr. Justice Prasad say, hey, I stand by my lone wolf decision of the previous case. I found that a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of approach, but it was good because he stood alone and stood out, and the the CCJ had overturned the Court of Appeal decision basically, and he was the only voice that has stood out against the Court of Appeal. It was a majority decision, not a unanimous decision. So there is that. However, all three judges, without any hesitation, and hesitation in lifted commas, of course, insisted on a couple of things. One, the results of the recount has to be used. Two, the CEO is an employee of the commission. He's not a man on his own. He doesn't have constitutional freedom. He's not a constitutional officer. The different judges refer to him using their choice of language, of course. I think Mr. Justice Prasad would have said he's an employee. Justice Priya Bihari Sunarayan would have said, I forget what the term she used, but that he cannot take it on his own. Now the judges also noted, I didn't hear the same words from the last judge, but the two judges basically said or remarked to the tune that the appeal was vexatious, frivolous. It was taking but the mere fact that it is all deemed res judicata, that a court heard and a court decided these things before, Leonard, was a waste of this court's time. And, I wonder sometimes as an accountant, my chartered accountant is, there are many more online that I'm sure listening to us. As an accountant, if you purposefully breach whatever chartered accountancy rules you undertake to follow, you'll be slapped on the wrist by the body. So the justices, the judge, the attorneys, that knowing something is res judicata, would continue to persist on it, hoping for some, hoping for what? A matter of technicality, maybe.
Yes.
But it speaks a lot. And what amazes me the most, I'll tell you this, what is shocking in Harman's statement today, Leonard, is the following statement: that I am still disappointed that the court did not use this opportunity at this juncture in the history of Guyana to make a judgment which is sound in law. That is contemptuous. It is belittling to the courts. I believe that is highly insulting to tell the court you have not made a decision based in law. Then what is it based on? Go back to 2 days ago. What have they said? One of the PNC APNO ALC executive was on air saying that he believed that Chief Justice Roxanne George's decision was not based on law but based on politics. That, Leonard, coming from the senior most people in a political party, is disgusting, insulting, contemptuous, you name it. Your knee-jerk reaction is that the decision of 3 judges was not based on law. Well, you know, I know Mr. Harman is an attorney at law, but he and his colleagues apparently know the law more than the appeal court judges.
Yes, Yog, and so you know what I found that was admirable, and maybe there's going to be some people who are going to disagree, was the last moments in which the court had ruled that the court says, look, we're not giving you any more time. I think that was a majority decision, and then it comes back. Priya Bihari says, look, I'm not going to give my okay to this. And 2 judges, including Rishi Prasad, who was so very vocal, speaking out, he says, look, we're going to give you 24 hours. He was okay with that. So I thought that was a little magnanimous from his part, which shows you, some very big hearts from our judges. So there's a lot of things. So when you come back and you talk and you looked at what Joseph Harman would have said there, the Guyanese people were certainly examined in a more meticulous way the manner in which their justice system functions. Coming back to your point a little earlier, Yog, in which you would have raised the question when you questioned the court's decisions at this time here in that way that Mr. Harman would have done. So it raises some worrying signals there. But more so if you go down to his end of his statement, which is not something that we have not heard before. Fraudulent votes cannot be basis for final declarations to be made, which is a point that we raised last evening, and I want to come back to that. You saw Ron Sanders. If you would have missed it, we would have had him in room 592. Interesting conversation as always with Sir Ronald. What is important is that the question was asked or the issue was brought up, Yog. When a court rules, especially with the Caribbean Court of Justice and so on, they ruled, how should you respect those rulings? And here it is, we have had court rulings after court rulings. I think we were the 15th or 16th case here now. And what is what is coming out is, for me, is the most alarming thing. And it raises, it goes to the very core or the fundamentals of authority and when decisions are being handed down. If the government of the day, if the incumbent is not respectful of the decisions of the court, how can you ask the people of the land, the people who you're supposed to be in charge of, that you're supposed to be leading, how can you ask them to go to court and respect the decisions of the court? The court is supposed to be sacred, sacrosanct, and along those lines. It is very, very worrying for me that when the Caribbean Court of Justice made it very clear that Yog is supposed to only wear black shirt, Gildarie is supposed to only wear white shirt, and then we come back and ask the court, what color are you really talking about, black or white? Are we serious?
Yes, indeed. I'll tell you what else I see in Harman's statement here, Leonard. I see it as inciting. What it is doing is telling their supporters that the court is not based on law, the court is not practicing law. They're telling their supporters, don't take this on. It's not a matter of, as a party, we're not respecting a court's decision. That, my friend, coming from a man who practiced law himself, or practiced law, I believe, so it is strange. I find the choice of language, and I tell you something, I said this when Vincent Alexander made that release a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. When people who study law or when practicing or previous attorneys make certain statements in public place, don't take it at face value. We have to read it and read it as you would a lawyer. Read it from the perspective of where they're writing it from. And so, Leonard, that statement cannot be taken lightly. I find it, the statement itself is vexatious and flirting beyond what is comprehensible at this time.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
What is he asking his supporters to do? Mm-hmm. Remember, his supporters came out attacking the chairman, attacking the Madam Roxanne George. They attacked these judges. That a couple of days ago there was an attack against the lady. The honorable lady name just mentioned that she was going to be one of the Court of Appeal judges. And there was so much attack and placards using somebody else, a wrong Priya's image and stuff like that. So it's amazing how the politicians purposely allow people to be misled to the point of inciting them to do certain things, Leonard.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Yog. Let us bring you up to date on a couple of things that we need to have a discussion on. This morning, there was a crowd of persons gathered in front by the National Cultural Center at the former home of President David Granger there on Mandela Avenue. They were there because they heard that they were sharing out, I think, $50,000 plus in cash as part of the COVID relief. The police turned up and, of course, told them it's all rumors and they had to leave. Several photos circulating around the net. This morning, also, the Ocean View, the former Ocean View Hotel, which has now been converted into infectious disease hospital, that was commissioned, of course, minus a lot of stuff that is inside there. The president, David Granger, was there, and he was asked by reporters, and let me make it very clear here. Our reporters told us that they did not receive an invitation. By the way, it was rumored that there was an opening and they ended up there, and so did a couple of other media houses. Starbuck News is reporting through its editor, Anand Prasad, that his reporters did not receive any invitation to that commissioning of what is supposed to be a very critical hospital. Already a number of patients there, and of course there are some questions coming out. But what is important, that questions were asked to David Granger about his position with regards to declarations, and he says, I am awaiting a declaration of Claudette Singh, the GCOM chair. And so he is, there's nothing changed in there. So when we come back to the former point that was made by, or the point that was made earlier by Yog Mahadeo here, in which Harman is making one statement and David Granger making one statement. Is there a wedge in the camp? Is there a division in the camp, sir?
Well, Leonard, look, we have seen this before, right? If you recall, the last time the court made a decision, Norton said his own thing, Harman said his own thing, Granger said nothing. And then what they do, they use a couple of hours in the evening, and then they come up with a new narrative. And so, they have a 24 hours to come up with a narrative. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the request for the 24 hours was not explicitly stated that it is a request to file an appeal at the court of CCJ, but it is a request for them to decide their way forward. Now, Leonard, you mentioned that thing about the group of persons or groups that would have assembled outside of Mr. Granger's former residence or current residence. I don't know what it is. Because of some rumor. I beg to say this, Leonard. I wanted to post this on social media this morning. I don't find it as a joke. It is a crying shame that persons would start such dangerous rumors. Look, politics aside, Leonard, let us just put politics aside for one moment. But to have people going, everybody has a need, to have people going and joining a line and standing for however long they stood up in a line to get some help, it is no joke. mothers, there are people there that wants to get help. And I don't find it was not funny for me. It was a matter of abuse of people's need to spread such dangerous rumors, Leonard, to go there. And it is something that we must frown on. We cannot be so irresponsible to spread such rumors, to create disharmony among people. The poor people who line up there, Leonard, they don't deserve this. So it was bad. It was bad. Whoever perpetrated that act, I believe that the police should really thoroughly investigate that and should deal with that person condignly. I don't like it, and it is not. We must not use when we create a rumor to do all of these things, brothers and sisters. It's our own people. Yeah, we are on different sides of the divide, but it is our own people, Leonard. And it was sad to me to see that. And finally, on that note, everybody has a need. Tell me who doesn't have a need, Leonard. Everybody has a need. And to take advantage of people's need like that is not a nice thing. It is really, really bad.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Yog. I want to ask you, sir, how much of a blow has this ruling or rulings by the Court of Appeal today to the coalition's campaign to use those figures that would have been struck out, that would have been deemed as not relevant, invalid, those Mingo figures and those old Lowenfield figures? How big of a blow is that to the coalition's campaign?
Leonard, there is no blow, there is no impact. I tell you what, all attorneys, you and I have spoken to a lot of attorneys. You and I have spoken to a lot of political persons as well who are former attorneys. Not one, whatever side they are on, indicated that they felt that this case was sound in law, that it was a proper appeal. And so I believe that the attorneys for the applicant, they knew that this case has no future, has no merit. And so they took it notwithstanding, but it is what APNU has been doing for 147 days, Leonard. Look, they knew that they are making false allegations about fraud in these elections. They knew that it was Mingo and his team who instructed the people at East Coast as a returning officer to not put the documents in the boxes. They knew, APNU AFC knew from the 2nd of March 2020, based on the SOPs, that they lost these elections. What have they done with the truth? They have perverted truth. They have done everything over 147 days to try to change truth, give it a different tinge, give it a different taste, give it a different flavor. You name it, they have done it in 147 days. They know that they can't get past this, Leonard. Ultimately, the whole world has turned against them. And when you listen to David Granger's words, when he's alone, when there is not somebody next to him to tell him, you remember when David Granger was in the tent? I re-looked at that video yesterday. And one of the reporters asked him a question. It was the people next to him, including one of the ministers, that basically tell him you can't answer that question. So he was standing on his own, and what did David Granger say on his own? David Granger, let David Granger speak this morning. And what he said is what we knew David Granger to be. That's the man I know. So Leonard, let's not dilute it or anything anymore. The APNU people knew their case was without basis, but what they want to do is to energize people. And I know this is happening. This last weekend they went out, they want to not energize, they want to fool people to come out, to make things happen in a way that they will have the fallback position to say, look, the people want it. Hundreds of thousands of people want it. They're protesting. That's what they want. They want people to come out and protest. Listen carefully to the speeches. We have recordings of them all. Listen to the speeches that all the ministers, the former ministers made when they went out to the villages, Leonard. They're basically telling people, stand up, come out with us, protest if you have to protest. Leonard, it's all based on what? Have they gone to any of these communities and said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is the pack of SOPs. They lie, lie, lie every single day, every single, I believe that they don't even know the concept of truth anymore.
Yes, the concept of truth, and talking about the concept of truth. Today, you would recall that yesterday it came to light that 3 private criminal charges were filed against GCOM Chair Justice Retired Claudette Singh. This morning, Guyana woke the news to a recording, which has been, I think reporters are trying to track it down right now, in which one of the persons who purportedly filed the actions, the private criminal charges against the GCOM chair, says, well, I didn't do it. So that is the news that's coming out. I didn't do it. So it wasn't me. Shaggy all over again there. So we are looking into that matter. The reporters are on that matter. So if she didn't do it, then who signed to hire a lawyer? And then they would have been specific. They went to Yog's address at King and Regent Street. Yog live at King and Regent Street, and says Yog has filed criminal charges against the GCOM chair. How did somebody arrive at that? Many questions to be asked there. But there's a recording that made it very clear. My auntie called me and I said, it wasn't me. I don't know who did that. I got to find out from James Bond. Even James Bond ain't getting called now. So I'm not sure what happened there. Like, we'd have to continue filing it.
Leonard, let's assume for a moment that recording is, because you use the right word, purportedly. Let us assume for a moment that the recording is what it is. And let us assume for a moment that these 3 persons indeed contacted their lawyers and said, please go file this lawsuit on my behalf in my name. Let us just assume that. One of the things that came out at the Court of Appeal this morning that is telling us that the court's patience with these things is at its zenith. It's at its limit, is the matter of costs. Because what's going to happen, the more, and I want to tell those people who are allowing their names to be used, 2 things, Leonard. One is when you lose, there's a matter of cost. And the courts are now, the more ridiculous these cases get, and the more troublesome and vexatious these cases get, the courts are going to be inclined to make an example. And the costs will have to be considered based on what the attorneys present. But Leonard, so probably persons are thinking, well, they want to file the case, they're going to pay the money. But ultimately, if you aid and abet money laundering, if you aid and abet that your name can be used as a front for something, the court can also at some stage be approached to say, you know what, let's lift this veil. Let us see who's behind all of this, because it has been a matter of wanting to just delay the processes. Now, the other question that we're going to discuss tonight with Mr. Datadin and Mr. Astafan is whether a private criminal charge that would have been filed against Lowenfield, or these charges that are filed against Madam Claudette Singh, whether they would in any way hold or tie their hands down with regards to their duties that they owe to the nation. Now, if I come to Glenn Lal and say, look how many people filed libel suits against Glenn Lal and Yuan and everybody else there, right? But it didn't stop your newspaper from publishing the next day. It didn't stop you from doing the work you have to do. It didn't stop you from paying your employees when their salaries were due. So the work of an entity must go on, notwithstanding a court action that might be taken against an officer of the entity, Leonard. That is the difference here, right? And tonight we'll be ventilating all of that. We have an interesting discussion coming up tonight, I'm sure.
Yes, lots of things coming out there. I see some of our viewers, listeners are saying that the girl would have the girl in question subsequently turned up and would have been with James Bond, saying that No. I signed it. So we are going to come to the end of it. If there's a video that now services that says otherwise, but there was that two recordings this morning that came out. So we said that we raise it. But to come back to this issue here, of course, it was funny looking at it because $2 million, and then Maxwell, who was with the Attorney General, Maxwell Edwards, I think it is. He would have said, but wait a minute. No, it wasn't Maxwell. It was this other lawyer. What was his name again? Saying, but wait a minute. These people add on themselves as respondents as a last moment. So how is it that they're asking for costs now? But it is one of the collateral damage that you would see coming out from when you decide to just, and I hear your point, Yog, when you decide to just put on your name because somebody is saying, look, I'm going to give you protection, you should put on your name, and let's file this thing because we are going to win it. Well, the record says differently. I think, is it 12-1 up to now? 3-0 this morning from the three judges. But in terms of the number of court cases, I think it's 12 cases for the opposition, one so far for the coalition. Not a very good record.
Leonard, I have a question for you. I'm hoping
I'm not the bound to answer it, right? Good, but go ahead.
No, it's not a technical question. I'm hoping that you had the time, because I know you were on the road trying to get a lot of things done as well, that you had time to look at the decision this morning. Can you recall which attorney it was, representing who, that spoke against the request for the $2 million cost? Can you recall who it was?
I think it's the one that oh man, he was a respondent. I think it was for is it not Yulita? Is it Yulita Moore? He was a lawyer for Yulita Moore, one of the lawyers. I'm trying to remember, but he was the one that says, look, these people added themselves. They were four persons or four parties that were named as respondents, and then
it was Mayo.
Pardon? No, it wasn't Mayo. It was the other lawyer.
My question more specifically though, was it Jones's attorney that said this? All these person who latch on to this case should not have a claim for cost. Was it? I'm not sure. I'm asking a question to the public as well, because I'm sure many people saw the case. Was it Jones's attorney that said that, or was it somebody else?
No, it's
because
one.
Who has to bear the cost, right? You have to look at who has to bear the cost, and who questioned about whether this cost is being considered for everybody and by everybody and stuff. So we got to, you see my point in asking this question, right? And we'll get into that discussion tonight, because I find it strange. I'm advised that yes, it was Jones's lawyer that made the statement, and that is all well and good. So tonight, however, we'll be talking more about it. It's a matter of cost, Leonard, must not be taken lightly, especially if judges are to say, well, you're now getting to be the point of vexatious. You're now getting, the case is res judicata, has been heard and decided before. Leonard, when you waste the court's time, there are a couple of things you do. You basically take up court's time from them paying attention to other matters that might be waiting for them. You also, you use a process, and in this case, you also delay GCOM from doing a national duty that is obliged in law to do. So, when I look at a $2 million cost that was given there, I would have said, the cost should probably be $20 million. Because at some stage, I want to appeal to the court. Who's going to look at this $8 billion cost to this nation?
Exactly, Yogan. So nobody's paying attention what this has been costing us since March the 2nd. And don't let us forget the cost that would have been adding up. Before March the 2nd, there was a huge cost in preparation for these elections. After that, renting of tents and everything at the convention center there on the railway embankment line. Nobody's talking about that. The ones even that some of my reporters were on, somebody had to be paying for that. It had to be GCOM. So guess what? All of that. And so when you come today and you see $2 million, let me make it very clear to you, Yog. is that if I have a chance to sue anybody, I'm not going to sue it by myself. I'm going to make sure that you and Glenn Lal is part of it because you're going to pay for it. I don't have the money. Definitely don't have $2 million.
Well, Leonard, you're making a presumption that the people you're suing have. I certainly know my brother, Mr. Lal, would be more inclined to admit that he may be in a position to meet those costs. But, look, coming back to the decision, though, Leonard, the three things, as we said, Guyanese, there are three things that came out today that are very, very important. One is, of course, the Court of Appeals unanimous decision. Two is Harmon's response to say that decision wasn't based on law or in law. And three was that the President David Granger would have said this morning that I'm ready to abide by the GCOM's decision, no conditions attached. No conditions attached. So I'm raising this back because the specter of inciting people, we have seen it. It's real. And it is dangerous. I would like to know, Leonard, I would really like, and I'm wondering why the police is not doing what it ought to do. Who is the person that incited, misled, you name the word, whatever word you want to use to describe. Who is the person that encouraged all those people to gather outside of the Court of Appeal last week? Who is the person that has encouraged all of the people to gather wherever they have gathered over the past different times, over the past couple of weeks, to protest against a COVID-19 lockdown? Because these people who are inciting, who are encouraging, who are doing all this mischief, they really should be taken to court for doing what they're doing. Because, Leonard, on the other hand, when we speak to the other political leaders, when we speak to Aram Karan, we speak to Jagdeo, we speak to Ms. Rhonda and Lam, we speak to all the other political players, what they're saying, they are not calling on their supporters to come out for want of protection of their supporters. Not meaning protection against anybody, but protection in this time of COVID-19. That is responsibility. That is good thinking, Leonard.
Yes, absolutely, there, Yog. Somebody raised the question there as to the money that this gentleman, Kate Lowenfield, as chief elections officer, would have been receiving, 24 million. I don't know anything about that. But if it is indeed the case, I want to bring you up to speed as to some of the benefits he's been getting. Outriders, police outriders, what you call that, special branch officials. That's a police special branch. He would have been getting protection from that. Guess who's not getting protection, Yog? Well,
Chairman.
not to the extent that we would have seen that Lowenfield would have been getting. I think you're right on the money with that one there.
Well, I said that because what I've seen is that the vehicle that Mr. Lowenfield is moving around was actually the vehicle that was assigned to the chairman at some stage. So I don't know what has transpired there, but Lowenfield seems to be moving around in the chairman's vehicle, and that is something that is of concern to us. And you're right. The amount of security you're seeing, remember it was security, layers of security that they couldn't even deliver their summons to the gentleman. The police basically got in between the court and the man, that they couldn't deliver a court summons to him. That's how far we have gone, Leonard. Now, in any other country in the world, any other country, without delay, they would have assigned security to a president-elect, to a prime minister-elect. They would have assigned security to protect the assets of the various ministries. Here what you have, though, is that everybody else, left on their own, they're not given the police protection. Some of them have taken private security, and you know who I'm talking about. They have taken private security. And the people and the matters of state assets and so forth are not being protected, not being safeguarded, like as if it is people's personal property, Leonard.
Somebody is asking what gentleman are you referring to, but let's go back to it. We could tell you from good authority that Claudette Singh has private security that she was forced to take because there was policemen that was guiding her. And I think at some point in time the decision was taken to switch to private security. I'm not sure who's paying for that, but what I could tell you that she is not the most important person in GCOM, and this is evidenced by the level of security, the fact that they took away the Land Cruiser that was assigned to her, the vehicle that was assigned to her. I think she's using her own private personal vehicle. So if you want to hear anything more than that, you guys investigate. I think these are some of the iPass that you would be seeing. And nobody's talking about that. She hasn't opened her mouth. She's been very, very silent. I think our report did call her yesterday, and she says that with regards to the three charges, she says no comments at this point in time. I think she did tell one reporter that I've acted according to the law so far, and I will continue to do that. But what is important, follow what is happening here and what you've seen with your own eyes. A vehicle that was given to Claudette Singh was taken away. Beautiful, I think, maroon color Land Cruiser, given to the chief elections officer. He was also given police protection, special branch protection, and they walk in and they even given them outriders with police cars. You're in the wrong profession, my brother.
Man, I tell you, I tell you, the issue we have here is it is so serious, Leonard. Look, you have a chairman, right? Let me put it this way. You have a chairman that is probably the most, I gotta be careful what word I'm using here, but she holds a pinnacle position in this country that all eyes are on her. Everybody is paying attention to what decision can Madam Claudette Singh make. So Leonard, she is at the pinnacle. And you have a man, Mr. Keith Lowenfield, who has perverted every bit of decision making within GCOM to his own ends. His intellectual authors are advising him every day what to do, what not to do. A man who is before the courts facing private criminal charges that has more security than even the president of this country. What other country will you find such things, Leonard? So you are seeing where the political power or where the political interest lies. My worry, though, I say all of this in a bit of indecision, because I say this wondering what is happening with the police force. I do not want to cast doubts upon the police force. I do not want to cast doubts into the character of the commissioner or his deputy. What we do know, they are retirees, or they are supposed to have been on their pre-retirement leave as we speak. And so one has to question whether these people were retained to do exactly what we are saying now. And Leonard, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. The entire GCOM secretariat, while all of these cases are 146 days discount, let's say 33 days from it for the recount, you have 100 days minimum, right? Over 100 days, all of the members of the secretariat, they have been collecting their salaries. And ladies and gentlemen, all of the commissioners, all of them, when you see them come out to the airways and say, well, we need, because I'm sure some of them would need a hard copy of this decision to study, they're being paid. They're not doing free work. They are earning a monthly salary or whatever they call it there, but they are getting money. And we will share that amount with you. It is all public knowledge. If it is not as yet, it has to be, because GCOM is no secret entity. These things must be investigated and made public. So, Leonard, while all this delay is going on and while people in this country can't get food to eat, you have people there earning their fat dollars to do nothing for over 100 years now. So I believe Chris Ram was right when he filed private action against some of those so-called ministers who are earning monies after the March 2nd election, and I believe we need to have more action against every single one of them, that such action should be taken against the commissioners and the commission and the secretariat and everything as well, because they're not doing anything. No court, except for the last time when they went to the CCJ, had said there should be a stay, Leonard. And remember, even though the court had put a stay in place, Lowenfield still decided he was above the court, and he issued a report.
He's a bad man. He's a bad man.
Yes. Let us ensure that we take action, Leonard, as far as is practical, because this thing here is beyond just perverting these elections or just pushing things back. It is criminal in my view.
My thoughts went far last evening with Sir Ronald Sanders joined the Room 592 Yog. He said something that really shocked me. He says, you know, if Claudette Singh was my family, I would hold her every evening or every single day and comfort her. She's in a very lonely place. And it is indeed so. If you see there's a lot of things that are coming out now that we did not know before. Like, for the example, the vehicles, the vehicle being that was assigned to her no longer there. I think she's using her vehicle there. She would have been forced to take private security. All these things were not coming out. And where is it? I mean, this is a lady who has to make the declaration for the next president to be sworn in. Why is she not being given? I mean, people should be running to her and give her the necessary protection if that is what she needs. But Sir Ronald did say last evening that if she was my relative, I would have been the one that was going to be there to give her the comfort that she so deserves, because it is a very lonely place. It's a very bad place the way she is at the moment. She doesn't envy her. Yesterday was 1 year since she would have been sworn in as GCOM chair. She hit the ground running. She would have stopped that based on the court ruling, that house registration, so we could get the election in process, the election swearing in process. What would have come out right now is that there is a window of opportunity that is probably going to be available to her. But what is also instructional to note to Yog is Kim Kite. We have to come back to that in court this morning. It is clear that she was given instructions as to what she should say, which is an indication, if you're paying attention to these little subplots that is happening in the court, that the GCOM chair is not in a playing mood right now. We finished playing. It is serious business. I'm not going to give you any leg room. So this 24 hours, I'm not sure how that's going to play out, because within the next tomorrow happens to be Eid. It's a Muslim holiday, national holiday. How is this going to play out in terms of, is there going to be enough time to file a CCJ ruling? How is a CCJ case? How is the CCJ going to deal with this matter, knowing that something similar would have been before it just a couple of weeks back? Is it bound to take it? We all have to see how that play out. Based on our information, all applications can be made, so the court has a decision to make. Justice Rishi Prasad would have made it very clear, and Justice Priya Bihari as well would have made it very clear where to stand on this entire thing. Over to you, Yog.
Correct. Yes, Leonard. I think our friend Suraj Singh reminds us of something very important, very nice here. If they're considering going to the CCJ with another appeal, what about their claim of sovereignty? What about their claim of CCJ get out of Guyana's business? You shouldn't, the court, we want to get out of the CCJ. We don't want to hear anything from. What about all of that? What about the monies they spend on the full page ad in the Trinidadian newspaper against the CCJ? Good point, Suraj. And Leonard, it is something, it sounds funny, but it is damn serious at this time, man. Look, 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? Yesterday, the head of the trade union movement, Mr. Lincoln Lewis, made a statement that President Granger should use his office to cancel the elections. What happened last week? You see, my point here, Leonard, go back to last week. What did Mr. Hamilton Green say? David, my brother, throw away the Constitution, throw away the laws. You do what your office allows you to do, or do what your office doesn't even allow you to, but just do what we want you to do. Mr. Hamilton Green, however, but he said lapsus linguae. He said, look, it was a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean it the way it sounded or whatever. Nobody learned from that. But yesterday, the head of the trade union movement, let me just correct myself. The trade union movement in Guyana, there are two factions. There are two umbrella organizations. There is a TUC and there is a FITUG. Mm-hmm. So it is the TUC part. It is the inheritance of Joseph Polydor part that said President Granger should cancel these elections. Leonard, I don't know how these people come up with such statements that they're calling on the president to abandon all laws, to abandon any guise of care for laws of a country, and to establish a dictatorship. Because if Granger is to do that, he will be establishing a dictatorship. And however, why I raise that, I find it strange because for Mr. Lewis to say so, Mr. Lewis is therefore promising the Granger government the full backing of all the unions under the TUC. All of the unions under the TUC have been represented by Mr. Lincoln Lewis's statement. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are a member of a union that is a member of the TUC, I want you to know that your union has said, your union leader has said, that we should abandon these elections and maybe I don't know, he didn't come out openly and say it, but if you abandon an election, what are you doing? You are establishing a dictatorship. You're establishing a rule of emergency rule. You're establishing that kind of thing. So we cannot, why I decided to also raise it, Leonard, we cannot take these things lightly. Look, when a person like Mr. Lincoln Lewis says certain things, Leonard, you got to pay heed to it because of his position that he holds. He obviously has a lot of political stake in the process. He has a lot of political investment maybe in the process, and so he's speaking from that behalf. The TUC has always, historically, going back to way back when, the Trades Union Congress has always, go back to Joseph Polydor, those of people who would remember that name, has always been in bed with the PNC. And it hasn't changed up to now. This is why you had the FITUG. There are another group of unions decided they're going to go out one side and create their own independent body. Now, you cannot take Lincoln Lewis' statement lightly, Leonard. And if Lincoln Lewis is saying that as the head of an umbrella trade union body, it means he is also, like Harmon's statement, calling on this population to demand that Granger set up a state of emergency, that the elections must not be allowed to continue, or a declaration must not be allowed to continue. And that is dangerous, Leonard.
Yes, absolutely. Monday is a holiday in the Trinidad and Tobago where the Caribbean Court of Justice is. Tomorrow is a holiday in Guyana. I'm not sure whether if there is going to be room to file anything, which is beside the point. What is important, Yog, there's an elephant in the room, and I want to tell you for my untrained, legal mind. That is, if you don't recognize what the courts have been saying with regards to the recount figures that you have to present, the Caribbean Court of Justice, very, very clear. You go back, pick up that book across there and bring it back to me. That is what was told to Keith Lowenfield. And so you don't recognize that. Now, let me ask you the question. Why are we going back to the CCJ then, if you're not going to recognize that?
Exactly. It just goes to show if you don't sing the tune that they want, you are enemy number one. And, they're going to attack viciously. And at the end of the day, Leonard, what it has done, it has diluted people's respect for the law. Guyana, as you know, historically, we have not been a very litigious nation. We have not been taking doctors to court or hospitals to court. And you hear all the stories of people and what's been happening in the public health system. And I just use that as an example in the consumer end of things. There's not been a lot of even labor cases, because they have these mediations and mediating bodies set up to kind of get things handled before it gets to the court. We have not, by and large, been a very litigious society. But over 100 days, we probably filed more cases than we did for the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just speaks to what kind of thinking that is going through people's mind. Because here's what's going to happen now. Every turn and twist of this nation, take him to court. Let's take him to court. Let's file court action. Let's go. So what you're going to find happening, it's in a way opening floodgates that the courts don't want. And this is why the courts are always interesting to assess res judicata and give you a subtle warning, because when you open floodgates for people to bring vexatious, frivolous cases and stuff like that, it's at the end of the day, Leonard, the justice, the judiciary, guess who funds them? It's Guyana that funds them. They don't get their funding from somewhere else. It is our system, it is our country that funds these good institutions, funds the National Assembly to make our laws. And when they push these things aside, Leonard, it damages things for a long time to come.
Thank you very much, dear. Elections COVID-19 watch here on Kaicho Radio. You can get us on Kaicho Radio on Facebook, on YouTube. It's Kaicho Radio live stream. So what we want to tell you at the moment here with regards to the news, the Court of Appeal has ruled today 3-0, 3 judges 0. They have thrown that matter out, that appeal that has been before them. The lawyers for the applicant has asked that there be a stay. The court in the initial stages says no, we're not going to give you any more time. In any case, after much to and fro, heated discussions at some point in time, the court decided to give 24 hours, and tomorrow is a holiday, so there is more drama that is happening there. If you've missed what is happening in our culture news today, July the 30th, ex-Surinamese finance minister, this is Gilmore Hudrad, I think, let me see if I got my Dutch right, finance minister hiding out in Berbice. He was spotted there. You will recall that at Suriname authorities, there was a recent elections. There's a new government in place now. There's about to say is out, and his former finance minister is wanted for questioning with regards to some irregularities at the central bank there. Prosecutors wanted to speak to him with regards that case. He's nowhere to be seen. However, he was spotted in Berbice. People who know him, and you got to remember that Berbice is very close. The quarantine is very close to Suriname there. People will go and come there like, as if they come into Georgetown. So they were very familiar, and they spotted him. He's there, somewhere there. It would be interesting if he is found to be here. It's confirmed that he is here. How he would answer to how he came to Guyana, because that Berbice River is blocked. There is the closing of the borders up there. So that's a case that we are following here. 3 separate private criminal charges filed against the GCOM chair. We have discussed that. She is to appear in court on August the 5th. Let us see what happens there. Appeal court to rule elections declaration case today. We did talk about that. Charges against GCOM chair have no merit. Lawyers, everybody's saying that this is a time-wasting, frivolous, vexatious kind of actions just to waste time. IDB underscores need for a swift conclusion to elections to improve COVID-19 response. Minister Sharma, this Jaipal Sharma, replaces God with Granger. Let me repeat that one there. Minister Sharma, Jaipal Sharma, replaces God with Granger. You need to read that story there. Ex-army officer pleads guilty to killing wife. Defaulters, and this is an important story here. If you're in public office and you're obligated to file declarations to the Integrity Commissioner, Commission. That is a body that says that when you entered office, you would have started serving, that whatever you go in with, you can't come out and say that you own a Rolls Royce because the salary would not afford it. So you have to file your declaration stating these are your assets and what you have in the bank and so there have been problems. Several politicians would have refused, did not commit themselves, or over the years just did not do it. Defaulters who fail to submit declarations will face the Court Integrity Commission chair. An end to political crisis is urgent, the UN rep. And this is the United Nations here now wading into this impasse that we're facing here. So there is the continued approach, stance by the international community on the situation of Guyana, in Guyana here, and which would have been, today makes it 150 days. 150 days since that March the 2nd elections. If you're using 30 days per month, that's 5 months. 5 months we are in the Guinness Book of World Records. So Jordan blames no confidence motion for failure to enact debt legislation, but during his time, while he would have said that, his government, his coalition would have passed 17 bills after that motion would have been passed. So it is very, very clear that his statement is either his statement is wrong, or he probably would have had a loss in memory there. So that is it with regards to your news. Yog, this evening we are going to have attorney at law Sanjeev Dattadin, as well as senior counsel Astafan. Did I pronounce it right? Astafan, and
Yes.
he's going to be with us in room 592, being led by Dr. Yog Mahadeo and myself as co-host. Yog, let's come back because there's so many unanswered questions with regards to the Court of Appeal. Of course, it was not expected to go any other way because lawyers and the legal fraternity who would have been looking at this particular case, this elections case, knew would have made statements that it's not going anywhere, there's no basis. So tonight, we are going to talk about the not only the holidays that are here, but that 24 hours, and then of course so many other things. Just bring us up to speed, Yog, and then maybe we could take some calls from our people.
Yes, Leonard, indeed. So the Court of Appeal was a unanimous decision, as you rightly say. I couldn't help. Is it in the Kaiser news today? That one slipped me, Leonard.
Which
About
one?
God.
Yes, I saw it and I smiled. I understand that he made some statements on his Facebook page, but it's an interesting story. I think maybe he wanted to say that he's loyal to his party, but sometimes you got to be careful as political figures, as public figures,
Of
what we
course.
say, what we do, what you and I say, what we do. We should not. We got to be very careful, and sometimes it does not take much to as a little slip of the tongue. What is it? Lapsus linguae? Yes.
Yes, lapsus linguae.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So coming back to the decision today, ladies and gentlemen, just to repeat. So we had a unanimous decision. There was a majority decision to give a 24-hour stay, which expires at or around 10 minutes before 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So that 24 hours expires, and I've been able to confirm, Leonard, that notwithstanding it being a public holiday, the hours will count. So it's not that the stay goes on because it's a holiday and you skip the day and you skip the next day because it's a holiday and you skip the next day because it's Sunday. The stay expires, I'm advised, at 1:50 or it would be 13:50 tomorrow afternoon. So that being said, note well that the first Justice Priya Bihari Sunarayan, I think she ensured she put herself on the record to say, I want to go on the record to say I do not approve of even a 24-hour stay. The other two judges who have been there part of the Court of Appeal before, they conversed and gave that stay. So it was a majority decision for a stay. The point to note, though, stay of what? All of the attorneys basically asked that question, and the court did not respond. At the end, I think the last moments going out was I don't know if it was Mr. Mendez or Mr. Nandlal who said, You have given a stay of what? What is on stay? Is it that the Court of Appeal decision is on stay? It's already delivered. So a stay of what? I don't think there is an answer, and I want to ask Mr. Datadin and Mr. Stefan tonight to certainly stay of what. And I want to also say that we are now hoping that Madam Claudette Singh can act and act expeditiously, because even if a stay is granted, let me just assume whatever it is a stay of, it expires tomorrow at 1:50. And it means there should be a meeting of GCOM tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Leonard. It is not too much to expect, is it?
Yes.
That the chairman. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what should happen, because the decision was given, earlier today up to about 1:30. Let us say that now is what? Now is 3:30. Let us say by now the written documents are with them all, emailed to them, so that those commissioners that depend on the written paper, on a hard copy, they would be given their copies by this evening. And if I would like to volunteer, if any of the commissioners has a soft copy that they wish to get printed out, we can volunteer to print it for you, gentlemen.
Oh yes, I forgot that. Could we do that? Could we get anybody? If anybody is on the feed here, I think as a public gesture to our good people, let us start printing those things out so we could have it delivered to our three hard-working commissioners. How are you doing there, Mr. Charles Corbin, Vincent Alexander, and of course Mr. Desmond Trotman? A good day to you guys. We could arrange it. We have some people sitting downstairs in Kaicho Radio here who would love to get it to you. And of course, I think there are many people who would want to rush it with outriders as well. Yog, I want to ask you this because there's something that's been bothering me. There are some correspondence issued by, I think one, at least the last one, by the GCOM chair to Keith Lowenfield, Chief Elections Officer, with regards to what he needs to do with those declarations. Now that there's nothing stopping him, my question to you, sir, which is something that we need to ask this evening, is there anything stopping Keith Lowenfield from giving those declarations to the GCOM, to the Commission?
No, there is nothing stopping Keith Lowenfield. And Leonard, sorry to harp on this point. When the Court of Appeal gave a stay of the application or a stay of their, let's just presume it was a stay of their judgment, it's mind-boggling in a way for the following reason. A stay of the Court of Appeal's judgment, knowing that the lower court, the decision of the lower court was held to be in place. While I think Justice Priya Bihari Sunarayan said that she don't think, or in her decision, the lower court did not have the jurisdiction, and the matters was res judicata by all three of them. So a stay of this Court of Appeals decision leaves a question. Now, to your point, should Mr. Lowenfield do what? Leonard, here is the question I have to counter your question. When the attorneys for the applicant or the appellant as well, when they went to court this morning or today, they knew a decision would have been handed down. Surely you had 5 days to consider what are your options, however the decision go. Leonard, it is worrying that you would go to court and now say that what we couldn't have done in the 5 days, we will now do in 1 day. Let me repeat that. They basically said to court, we couldn't have decided what we want to do going forward, whichever way this decision was handed down, but in 24 hours, we're going to do that. So that is telling us a tale by itself, Leonard. At the same time, Leonard, why must Mr. Lowenfield be given more time from 1:50 tomorrow? The man has had all this time. In fact, Lowenfield has had more time than the entire recount. The whole more than 33 days this man alone got. Right? So Lowenfield should have also been preparing his report depending on which side the decision is to go. If decision go this way, report A. Decision go this way, well, I strip it and I can burn all those ballot boxes. But he should have been prepared. Now, I hope, I pray, I plead on behalf of the Guyanese people to the chairman. No more 24 hours and 72 hours and a whole week for Mr. Lowenfield go and bring back a report. The report does not take more than an hour. It is a matter of applying the formula, getting the seats in parliament, who get how much. Everybody, every school child in this country already know those numbers. So Mr. Lowenfield, he has a whole secretariat, Leonard. The man cannot take more than an hour. And what is the hour to do? To basically shoot the report to the printer and take it to her. Or in this day of COVID, let me save a little bit of the trees and send an electronic copy to each member of the commission. Leonard, I hope and I beg and I plead with the chairman, no 24 hours, no 72 hours must be given to the CEO. Give him an hour. I would want to go with Madam Justice Barnes and Justice Passad and say, you know what? Give him 3 hours. So by 4 o'clock tomorrow, he must present his report to the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And Leonard, that is not too much to expect. The man knows the numbers. He has all the figures. He doesn't have to manufacture it at all. He just got to present those figures. Chairman, please, put things in place. No 24 hours, because you give them 24 hours, another lawsuit will be filed. They're using the time to engineer lawsuit upon lawsuit to just delay the process, Leonard. So the chairman needs to realize that ultimately her back is against the wall in terms of how they're pushing her. And she's in a position where it's damned if she do and damned if she don't, Leonard. If she don't act, they're still criticizing her. When she acts, they will still criticize her. So let's get on with Guyana's program and let's put this thing behind us.
Yes, Yog. And Yog, I'm not so bright. I didn't go so far in school. I want to ask you this. You've now, as 3 judges of the Court of Appeal, delivered some decisions. By granting those stays, and I think that is that is the issue that were being argued by all the lawyers for the respondents. They're saying for the political parties, they're saying, but what are you granting this thing on? You just delivered some judgment, and I couldn't understand why Justice Don Gregory went in that particular direction. Because you just delivered, and if you delivered it, you would have delivered it based on your convictions of where it stands, and therefore 3-0, it's gone. If you need to go, and this is what Anandal is saying and the rest of them, if you need to go, you need to have the proper file. And I think Timothy Jonas would have made it very, very clear. You need to go to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and you need to file it there, and then we'd have the necessary mechanisms kicking in. But here it is, you just delivered, and 2 judges is coming out. I couldn't understand, Justice, with all due respect to the court, and this is free comments here. You just delivered some decisions and your rulings, and you're saying, well, let me give you some more time to do whatever it is that you need to think about. I couldn't understand that. This makes sense to me.
True, Leonard, true. So whether the commission will meet tomorrow, I think at some stage, Leonard, I think, the newspapers of this country, their headlines, I think everybody who is in contact with the chairman, I think, somehow or the other, we need to encourage the chairman, stand by her side and say, look, you need to call a meeting with urgency. Mr. Lowenfield needs to present that report by tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock. That is because Leonard, here is what's happening. Tomorrow afternoon is the last day of this month. It is the last day of this month. Today, let me just add this, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, I have basically agreed to maintain a day of fasting because today is a special day for Muslim brothers and sisters. It's the day of Arafah. And it is a day of fasting. It is a holy day. And tomorrow is the day to rejoice. So please, Chairman, let us rejoice with our Muslim brothers and sisters. Tomorrow is Eid. Let us celebrate. Let us have a day of plenty. And let us celebrate in prayers. I want to repeat, Leonard. Chairman should be writing to Lowenfield as we speak and say, listen, the time expires at 1:50 tomorrow. I expect your report by 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon because, Leonard, if she doesn't, a new month starts the next day. It's going to go to March, April, May, June, July. The month number 6 starts on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo, joining us here. The Court of Appeal would have thrown out that appeal there, and immediately after that, you would have had a statement coming out from the coalition. It is disappointed with the Court of Appeal, the same Court of Appeal, which would have issued the delivery a majority decision a couple of weeks back. We are looking into the dispensation of justice and how our courts are operating. This is coming from Joseph Harmon, and so they would have been given 24 hours. This is the applicant in the case, Messenger Jones versus the GCAM. And so we are waiting to see how this plays out in the next couple hours, heading into a holiday period tomorrow. And Saturday is also going to be a holiday here. It is Emancipation Day, August the 1st. So let's see how that goes. What we could also tell you this evening, Dr. Yog Mahadeo is going to be leading the way with Senior Counsel Astafan from across the Caribbean there, and he comes with his knowledge of elections and the way forward, and he would be giving us, he was a guest here a couple of weeks back, and lots of things coming out from him, how these things go, how the Caribbean court would probably be handling something like this. And of course, our own Sanjeev Dattadin, attorney at law, local attorney at law here in Guyana, who's part of the case. So Yog, as we go forward, in the meantime, I think the conversation would have to start about the rule of law in Guyana, because it is very, very clear what has played out the last couple of months, and something I keep thinking about over and over and over. If the police stop me, like I come around by Banks DIH turn today, by Torres Park there, and the police are standing in the middle of the road, should Gildarie stop or should he drive away? Because if it is that our very own leaders are not paying attention to court rulings and so on, and when they would give these decisions, why should I be paying attention to my police officers here? Because you're the leader and you're not doing it. It sends a very, very clear message, a wrong message, a wrong signal to our people when you can't lead by example. That is how dangerous it is. And so we are going to have to continue the conversation as we hopefully very quickly get past the stage to a country that is on its way to become a first world country. We should be having these conversations. We should be having conversation about, we should not be seeing defaulters who fail to submit the declarations will face the court. So, Yog, we've been talking about Integrity Commission, about the Procurement Commission, and so many other commissions. They're there by the laws of Guyana. It's been there. It's there in the Constitution that these bodies have to operate. You have so many other Police Complaints Authority being given millions of dollars per year to operate. The Ethnic Relations Commission being given millions of dollars to operate, and they failed us. We can't say that if it's, well, in this particular case, the Integrity Commission chair is saying very, very clearly that people are not complying. Now, if you're not complying, why do we have the laws for if you fail to do it, what could be jail? We need to start jailing these people here who are not complying. You go into office, why would you not want to comply by submitting your declarations of assets? It's a declaration of assets. We need to know what you're owning. So if you get in there and you steal the money, you take the money, you put it in a car, 3 properties with a pole and everything, we need to know what you own. That is why it's very important. The rule of law is very, very important. We need to have these conversations, Yog.
Yes, Leonard, and I am struck here, man. This the CEO of GCOM gets over $1.5 million, Leonard.
Who says that?
Um, I am telling you, man, we got to check out this information to see, we got to check the veracity of it. But I'm telling you that, information, it's, everything there is in public because remember, a lot of these things form line items. And you would recall that the Attorney General would have done investigations into GCOM's affairs this last time around. Remember the last time when Mr. Steve Surge-Valley was there as chairman. And so information is there. But Leonard, the other information I am getting coming to me is that the GCOM seems to be meeting on Sunday, Sunday, August the 2nd at 10 o'clock.
That's going to be interesting. So why was it not Saturday? I think
Well,
somebody.
I think there may be. I am awaiting confirmation, but there may be a meeting on Friday to discuss the way forward. But certainly, the formal meeting seemed to be set for Monday. But I'll repeat to you, my friend, and as we move off the show later on, I'll probably you and I will probably discuss. We got to go back into the AG report, the AG audit. We got to go back to some of the submissions of budgets and so forth that were made. But I'll have you know, Leonard, that if you take the top two persons, the main persons in GCOM, you're looking at over $2 million, man. You're looking at a lot of money that the Guyanese people have to bear up at this stage while all of these things are being delayed. You look at the CEO and you look at the DCEO and you look at a number of persons there. Leonard, it is something. And one has to wonder. I see Mickey Ali, sharing something that is important, I believe. That at certain levels, at certain stages, governments and statutory bodies, their allowances and salaries ought not to be a matter of state secret.
Why is it a secret, Yog? We were weird stakeholders. Why should it be a secret?
Exactly. And I also want to know, my question, and I think it is something that we are having our right to ask the Integrity Commission, whether the CEO and the DCEO of places like GCOM have complied. We don't need to know what they have filed, but whether there has been compliance at the Integrity Commission for these public officers.
Absolutely, and I bring you back to 2015 and the spendings of GCOM. When you buy a $700 pliers for $5,000 and nothing comes out of it, when you would spend money and spend over, I think it is about $100 million to buy radios for elections that you never use it for, and when you actually check the radio, they're no good. These are things that we need to pay attention to. When it was being published by Kaicho News, there was very little reaction to it, except everybody made a laugh. Aha, it's another scandal. But these are things that come back because these are the people who've remained in the system the same 5 years later, and you're seeing what is being playing out now. Yog, I'm receiving something here that I think I should share with the people also. This is coming from the West Demerara Hospital, Regional Hospital. And why is this important? Because we're dealing with elections COVID-19. And COVID-19, they're told 20 persons. I think we over 300. What's it? It's 300 persons out, more than 300. This is Kathleen Armstrong Hospital Administration, West Dem. Regional Hospital. To all heads of department, please be advised that all staffers are required to return to work for their respective duties 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For 30 shift workers respectively from August 3rd, 2020. Please note that all rotation of staff must cease with effect from August 3rd. Also note all transportation, which was previously available, will now cease. Please bring this memo to the attention of the staff under your supervision. Yog, why this is important? Because the basis of any decisions that would have to do with COVID-19 measures would have to be done on any scientific basis, meaning that your number of cases would have to go down. Our number of cases, our deaths have been increasing. They have indication that despite the borders being closed, that it has been increasing, and it has been increasing, especially in the border areas. Here, the thing that is in direct contradiction to this is that the staffers at the West Dem, especially, some of them are going home late at night. The nurses, and so we could recall the story of one lady that we interviewed that made her boss available to take nurses back and forth. They're the frontline workers. Here you have it, the hospital administration says, no, 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 no. All COVID-19 measures is being stopped right now. You're not on rotation basis. Turn up for work on August the 3rd. Back to basic, back to normal. So I'm not sure what is happening here. This has to be investigated. And where are the authorities? Did the hospital made this decision by itself? Is the health ministry saying that we don't have a COVID-19 situation here? It was only a few hours back that we know that the COVID-19 infectious hospital at Liliendal there, the former Ocean View Hotel, was commissioned, which is a clear indication that we have a situation on hand. How did this hospital take a decision that seems to be running contrary to that? I'm not sure. You very quickly as we wrap up, maybe you want to wade into that and let's talk about what is going to happen and the way forward.
Well, Leonard, at the end of the day, we cannot get a handle on COVID-19 because of a number of reasons. One being, of course, there is no even-handed application of the rules across this country. Some regions are very open. Some regions are some people, some political persons are very open. You would go on Facebook and you would see, for example, a good friend of ours, a good gentleman, would have had the person who identified himself as the applicant in this one case that is filing a matter against Claudette, saying they're in a room together, facing the camera together, none of them wearing masks or anything. So rules apply to some, it doesn't apply to some. At the end of the day, what our doctors, what my brother would have said, Dr. Mahadeo would have said, and it holds true, you look at any country, unless and until this country does the baseline testing and have an across-the-board kind of testing to see what is happening with the population, what risk we are at, you cannot know whether you're increasing at what percentage, the rate of increase. We're looking at actual physical numbers, but it doesn't tell us what percentage of the population is at risk. And Leonard, remember, there are a lot of persons who would be asymptomatic. They do not display this, they do not show, they do not even know that they themselves have the disease. And so that gives a problem. And, you know, that's my worry. When I see people go out to the Court of Appeal and protest, or I see people come out and join these public rallies and public meetings, my concern is that in that crowd, there will be somebody who is asymptomatic, who don't know that they have the disease, and they put others at risk. So not because you feel healthy and you feel good, it doesn't mean you don't have it. Somebody has it. So, Leonard, all of those are things that, you know, we gotta continue to look at. But this election, the truth is, until and unless this election gets out of the way, we cannot move on, whether it is to give people financial and other help, whether it is to manage COVID-19, whether it is to relook at the regulations to see what it is. You know, there's no solution unless the elections is out of the way.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you very much. It's a short version here of the elections and COVID-19 watch here on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. We have been coming to you on Facebook, Kaicho Radio on Facebook, and of course, Kaicho Radio live stream. That's where you could temporarily get us every time that we have the COVID-19, the elections watch, and of course, room 592 this evening. And if you have now joined us or joined us recently, the Court of Appeal today threw out that appeal that was filed by the applicant on behalf of Messenger Jones after the Chief Justice would have more than a week ago threw it out also. And so the Court of Appeal 3-0, 3-0, would have said, no, we're not entertaining this here. In fact, there were a lot of criticisms that's coming down from at least two judges today. The applicant would have been given 24 hours, which expires just around 2 o'clock tomorrow, to decide on how they understand it, or what I presume that gives them a little leeway. But tomorrow happens to be a holiday also. This evening, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, myself, are going to be in room 592. Attorney at Law Sanjeev Dattadin, and of course, Senior Counsel, Regional Senior Counsel Astafan. He's going to be with us here. So it has been a pleasure as always. Very big day for drama at the Court of Appeal as the judges weigh in on what has been but 14th or the 15th case that has stemmed from the March 2nd elections. So we are going to continue to bring it. It seems as if the longest rope is coming to an end. That's what the people are saying. A good day to you folks. It has been a pleasure as always. Good day to you too, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and all the wonderful people across this country, across this region, North America, Europe, and of course to our goodly staff here, Kevin, Raj, and of course Joshua in our studio, and the rest of the folks down at Kaiser News. Good day to you, and have a pleasant rest of the day until.